Hi, this is Josh again. In my last video, I showed you how to create a plugin with integration tests using plugin machine. We talked about the difference between integration tests and unit tests. I'm going to open up the plugin again here on my screen and showing the environment test. These are sort of tests to prove that the test setup is correct, but I think they're a great way to show the difference. Open integration on the left and unit on the right. Look at this test. I have to use a mocking library to pretend WP insert post is a function that returns 1 in order to use WP insert post, because it's a unit test and I don't have a database. But I can, like in my integration tests, global WPDB is an object, and I can insert a post and get back an ID, and it's real. Look at this. So like I can just call get post, which is normal WordPress. Into that, when I'm doing things like putting data in the database and taking it back out, I think that's really important to actually test it with the database. So in this video, I'm going to build like a basic custom table, and a few functions for it, like in a, maybe not a whole CRUD class, but a CRUD class, and just show you how we do that. And you can mock global, the WPDB, put a fake get results on it. How does that prove anything? I don't get it. Unit tests are useful for some types of logic. Preparing objects to be saved in the database, maybe. But anyway, the actual like database you get to test. So composer, test WordPress, just to prove this works. That's why the environment test is there, because you can use them to debug issues with tests. Like if this fails, you wonder why all your other tests fail. So let's go here, and first, I'm going to just create a function here. Tables, right? And in advance of this, I opened up some pages that I'll share in the link here, but into the video description. But these are pages in WordPress documentation. So we need DB Delta to create this table. Create one more here. Let's just call this table. We're going to need it in other places. Just getting to them ourselves. Like how, like the first thing we want to test here is, does this add a table without making an error, right? And so I'm going to need that in a test. Let's change this to name. This will be the name of the hamster itself. And we'll update that appropriately. So these are integration tests. So I'm going to go ahead and create a tables test here. Let's just put this stuff down. Test table is added. So I'm tempted to like do this here, but that's not what's going to get really used in the plugin. So for now, I'm going to do that and make sure that it works. And then I'm going to move it to where it actually belongs. And this test should still work. It's part of the value of testing. So get global WPDB. This is sort of an annoying test to figure out, like, does it get added? But we're going to do DB, actually get all tables what would that be? It's ratio tables. And so, whatever what I wanted to do in this video, because I didn't like figure it out in advance how to do this. Like, I mean, I've done this before, but it's been a minute. Is I wanted to show you how I use integration tests and a lot of var dumpings, like I just did there. Figure out like, okay, that's the right command. Now I'm going to have to do this. Basically, I'm going to have to say found equals false. This assert true found. So that would fail, but I'm going to do for each all tables as table. And then if equals tables in WordPress. I think that will match. If I want to, I will say found equals true. So this is a little bit weird test to have to write, but the only way it could possibly pass is if this conditional gets to be true at some point. Sometimes VS Code will just kind of stall on the Docker container like that. And so like I couldn't type anything, wasn't working. So I'll just rebuild it. This is the beauty of Docker containers. When they're a problem, you just throw them away. They're imaginary machines anyway. Once again. So, oh, and that actually tested our thinking, right? That this was found. So let's go ahead and now make a class here. Oh, the thing I said I was going to do. I was going to move this out of here. Because I don't really care that that function does this. Oh, well. See, now here's the thing that I'm going to need to work out here is that I need to drop this. Every time I run this test, I'm going to need to drop this table. WPDB drop table. I think there's a special function for that. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. Yep. Cool. See, I'm just gonna have to delete that table after every one and then add it back. I'm just using prepare to substitute that. That should work. Yeah, no, it's the C spread. See what that is then. It's not substituting that, which is so weird. I'm using the wrong function. This is why we use tests. Eventually we figure it out, right? Now, like, that's what we need. I was trying to use an object, like a function as a string there, basically. So now this shouldn't work because they haven't been added. This is part of writing your tests. It's like always just making sure that your tests are valid. Not making an assumption that makes your tests pass for reasons that aren't true, right? So false is true, and then we undo this. Cool. Yeah. So now I'm going to go here. I'm going to call this one hamster CRUD. And that is not the kind of CRUD that builds up in the cage if you don't clean it properly. It's a different conversation. That is, CRUD is a term for create, read, update, delete. So database functions. It is a common term that if you don't know, now you do. Great. Don't want to assume people know things. Yeah, which brings me here. I'm going to write this sort of like it's going to be an abstract class, but I am going to write it around this specific function here. So that way I know it works, and then I'll use my tests to help me abstract it to something I can use in the future. Even though right now it's only doing one thing, I'm still working with one table. I'm going to pass in that table name here. And function create name. I'm going to go sort of not sure. I don't want to have to call WPDB into the, and there's some other advantages to having it here. So we're going to, I don't want to have to do global WPDB every time in every one of these methods. So I'm going to do this WPDB. That does give me some flexibility later. I could have just done equals global here. Equals this WPDB get results. It would be better for query. What we really want is insert here. Isn't there a method insert? Right. Yeah. You want to use insert just because it does some magic stuff for you there in terms of safety. So we're going to insert into this table name. And then my data is just going to be, as I recall, name. Honestly, not. Can't remember what that returns. So I need to make sure you get that. Oh, yeah, that's not working. Should be like my VS Code should automatically import these. Because I'm reporting and running Docker at the same time. Yeah, like GitHub code autopilot. It's just yeah. Anyway. Hamster's CRUD, and then let's created equals CRUD create name. We will call this one blue spruce. That's a great name. Right. And then again, can't remember what that does. We'll just tell it it's bar dump here. Oh, forgot to put in my variables. Requires global WPDB. So I'm taking these from outside of the class and passing them in. We call that dependency injection, and it makes the class more reusable, they say. You're going to see why as we go. It doesn't exist. Create it. Cool. So that does actually return an integer, which is great. So that is going to ram string name return int, right? And then let's bring our test back up over here. Tables test ID equals is int. That is one test down that covers one method, right? And then let's copy that here, but let's test read, right? CRUD, create, read, update, delete. Read. This one, purple spruce. And then this time we're going to do this assert. Well, okay, so let's find it. And then assert same. First, let's do this assert array has key. ID, sure. I want, but what I really want to test is does it have that name, right? And then we'll assert same purple spruce. And so now when I run this, I'm going to get an error because read doesn't exist. This is kind of test-driven development. Write what it should do, and then work my way backwards to that. WVDB, get results. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say WVDB prepare, select from this table name where ID equals, and then we'll do sprint F style separator, the ID, and that will force it to be an integer. So that's good. and then return results, which I think is going to be a problem here. I think that's going to return like an array with the first. Well, hold on, I also need to tell it here to return an array. By default, it's going to return an object. Oh, I can't even remember how this works. I have not used WPDB in like at least a year before making this video. Undefined variable, where's that? Oh, that would be this. This is why I write code with tests, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing without them. Boom. Undefined method, assert array has key. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Assert array has key. There are not 3 R's in array. So they have failed for kind of valid reasons. Let's see what it returns. My assumption is that it's an issue that it doesn't return a single entry. Yeah, see, this would have passed. So this is cool. Let's make this API better. Let's say if is an empty result and is an empty result 0, so that should be and is set else throw new exception for neat. So this test should now pass, but I also need to, that's the happy path. But what happens if I did done 2? I would have gotten that exception because it doesn't exist. So public function test read fails. Spruce is in there, but then we're going to try and use it to read just 4. And when we do that, we would expect an exception to happen. We're going to tell it this expect exception. We're going to tell it what kind of exception. This is the normal type. But if we're throwing our own custom exception there, we want to test that that happened. So we're going to tell it to deal with this. Oh, this exception is not the one that I was testing for, right? Like it was because I instantiated exceptions wrong. This is why we write tests, things like that, that seem simple. You want to make sure that they're actually working. So CRUD update, cool. So for this, WordPress has an update method, I believe, in here. Update rows, table data where format. Cool. So this is going to be result equals WPDB update this table name. What's that again? Data is going to be, the name is what's going to change here. And then the where is going to be where ID equals ID. So it's going to update the record that has that ID. And then this is the formats here. That. what does that return? It's going to return an integer. So it should return 1. So if 1 equals result true, then not update. So we're going to have to test both of those things. Let's copy this one here. So we're going to need to do a failed test. And then we're also going to need to do a normal test update. So we're going to create it. Then we're going to CRUD updated. We want to test if that's CRUD update ID. This is going to start out as Sparkle Spruce, and it's going to change to Sparkles. Just get rid of that whole Spruce association in its branding. So we want to assert this, assert true, updated, right? And then just to check the effects of it, we want to say Sparkles, CRUD read ID. Then this one, invisible sparkles. We're going to try and update number 4, which doesn't exist, to imaginary sparkles. Spruce, maybe. There we go. And so that should fail on us, or that should pass because the method will throw an exception. Did I screw up my exception again? I made exactly the same mistake. Cool. So this tested that it could update and that it would return true if it successfully updated. And then it also tested that when we get that back from the database, it's correct. And that may be testing 2 things at once. I don't care. I want to test that it works. This is integration testing. I don't care about being nitty gritty. Like in a unit test, I want to make sure the whole system works as intended. Finish this off with function delete ID, db delete. All this stuff, table where, and then where format. This table name, and then this is going to be aware, ID equals ID, and then we're telling it to look this up as a number, so we will do there. I think this returns true or false. So if result return true, or no exception could not delete. I need to create these tests though. So we're going to do test read and test read fails. We're going to cut and paste those. The amount of cutting and pasting I'm doing here is why we often build factories. I'll talk about that. We load factories into our tests. I'll talk about that in a future video. So this is going to be test delete fails here. I'm going to create purple oat. I do change the name every time, and that doesn't exactly matter, just because it becomes useful when you see the wrong thing popping up for no reason. Oh, I know why. That's from the test before. So let's create it and then assert true, deleting it. Delete ID. Let's actually just copy this over again here. And then let's try and delete one that doesn't exist. Nice. Okay, so to go over what we did here, we took this plugin that I had already created using Plugin Machine, where I'll show you everything that I had to do to make this plugin real quick. It has unit tests. It has integration tests. It's something like hamsters. Brand new plugin. I want to choose its features, but all I'm going to enable is Hoser and PHP tests. Then give it a namespace. And I just checked all these boxes here. Here, I went to download, downloaded this. This is kind of the start point here where it has everything set up, and we have, you know, unit tests and integration tests. And in my past video, I had done some of those unit tests and integration tests already. So this time we're just showing like this kind of table class here that has, you know, create, read, update, delete, and how we would test that. So I hope you're learning from these tests, how they work, getting more comfortable from watching these videos with writing tests. In my next video on integration testing, I'm going to just show a little bit more about how I use tests in my development, and I'm going to abstract this into a class that could work with any custom table without doing too much changing to this, and making sure that these tests that I have here, not my hooks test, my tables test, still pass, right? That I can update it, I can create something, I can read it, the table exists, that kind of stuff. That I can delete, that's all done without breaking these. I want to convert it into an abstract class. That's the kind of thing that I can do safely because I have these kind of integration tests. And that's the real value test, is you can quickly iterate without knowing, having this fear of like, oh, did I break the thing that I also used this code for? So a lot more videos about testing and other things in WordPress development and how Plugin Machine makes that easier. So like and subscribe, or go to pluginmachine.com/subscribe. See other things like email lists you can subscribe to and learn more about Plugin Machine. Thanks.